the best and most memorable concept cars of the 1980s. 1. 1980 Briggs & Stratton Hybrid. We're used to concept cars coming from major automakers, but in 1980, small engine manufacturer Briggs & Stratton introduced this last gasp from the malaise era. A six-wheel hatchback with a B&S 18-horsepower air-cooled twin-cylinder combined with an 8-horsepower electric motor, which could power the car independently or in tandem. The extra axle supported the weight of the 10 car batteries that lived under the trunk floor. Like today's PHEVs, the batteries were charged by braking, running the engine, or plugging in. Acceleration was pokey, but the car could top 60 mph eventually, and a frugal driver could get 85 mpg. Briggs & Stratton still owns the car, and it was recently featured on Jay Leno's Garage. 2. 1981 Ford Probe 3. Before the questionable Probe name was used on a production car, it adorned a series of concepts. At a time when most Ford cars were still boxy boxes, the Probe 3 gave the world a preview of the aero styling that would come to define Ford design in the late 1980s. The Probe E3 was really a preview of the European market 1982 Sierra, a car that would eventually come to the States in hot rod form as the Merkur XR40. But it also showed cues that would be used on the louvered 1986 Taurus, not to mention the louvered tail lights that would appear on the 1988 Ford Mustang GT. 3. 1984 Ford Maya. Back in the 1980s, Ford was seriously considering a mid-engine Targa-top two-seat sports car for the American market, and the fully functional Maya concept shows us what it would have looked like. Power for the production car was to be a 250 horsepower 3.0-liter, 24-valve V6 co-developed with Yamaha, though the concept reportedly had a less powerful placeholder engine. Styling was done by Giugiaro Giugiaro, and the design was criticized for looking too much like his Lotus Etna concept, which was pretty much a big invention. Ford built a couple of follow-on concepts, but ultimately the project was halted. Mostly, the engine was used in the Ford Tourist show, and Ford would, of course, eventually produce another mid-engine supercar. And another one after that. 4. 1986 Chevrolet Corvette Indy. We all know that Chevrolet built numerous mid-engine Corvette prototypes before finally putting one into production. Of all the mid-engine dream Corvettes, the 1986 Corvette Indy is arguably the most intriguing, with its 600-plus horsepower twin-turbo 2.65-liter V8, Kevlar, and carbon fiber body, active suspension, four-wheel drive, and four-wheel steer-by-wire. The Indy evolved into the 1990 CE-R V3, which looked like a production-ready car, though it actually wasn't. Alas, we'd have to wait nearly a quarter of a century before the mid-engine Corvette became a reality. 5. 1986 Pontiac Transport. The Chrysler minivans were the hot ticket in the mid-1980s, and competing automakers were scrambling to bring their own garageable vans to market. Pontiac showed a preview of its family hauler, with the Transport concept, which featured a composite body, gull-wing rear doors, a glass roof, and a built-in Nintendo Entertainment System. Power came from an experimental 2.9-liter turbocharged V6, and the two-tone paint and grooved side cladding echoed the styling of contemporary Pontiacs. Sadly, when the production version appeared in 1991 of GM's hapless Dustbuster vans, it wasn't nearly as cool or exciting. 6. 1987 Chrysler Lamborghini Portofino. Chuffed with its 1987 purchase of Lamborghini, Chrysler repurposed a Kevin Verdun design called the Navajo and applied it to a stretched Lamborghini Helpa platform, which it called the Portofino, not to be confused with the Ferrari Portofino, a mid-engine rear-drive sedan with 4 scissor-style doors, the idea being to show the possibilities of a Lamborghini sedan. Lack of sources for high technology, limited direct travel, and a place with a stretched Lamborghini Chulpa platform, which it called the Portofino. There never was a four-door Lambo, at least not under Chrysler ownership, but the styling of the Portofino would have a heavy influence on Chrysler's most daring and successful designs. The cars we know as the Dodge Intrepid, Chrysler Concorde, and Eagle Vision. 7. 1987 Lincoln Vignale. Alfredo Vignale was a former Pininfarina designer whose company eventually wound up under Ford ownership, and the name was applied to this concept for a high-end Lincoln Roadster. The Vignale was designed as a competitor to Cadillac's Alante, which went into production for the 1987 model year. Presumably, it signaled Ford's intention to pounce in case the Alante succeeded. But of course, the Alante didn't succeed, and in fact was a money loser that ended up as one of General Motors' biggest failures of the 1980s. No surprise, then, that the Vignale never made it into production. Today, the Vignale name is used on high-trim Ford cars in Europe. 8. 1987 Oldsmobile Aerotech. The Oldsmobile Aerotech was designed as a showcase for Oldsmobile's then-new Quad-4 engine, a 2.3-liter four-cylinder that featured dual overhead cams and 16 valves. Old hat today, but heady stuff in the mid-'80s, especially for Detroit, which had been struggling for years to build a halfway decent four-banger. Designed by the legendary Ed Welburn, the Aerotech was based on an IndyCar chassis and was effectively a rolling aerodynamics lab. Turbocharging brought the Quad 4 up to 900 horsepower, quite a bit more than the 151 horsepower it made in stock form. And A.J. Foyt took the car up to 218 imph. A second version of the Aerotech, with a 1,000 horsepower Quad 4, hit 275 imph. The Aerotech produced reams of positive publicity for the Quad 4, and Oldsmobile later built a third car in the early 90s to promote the upcoming Aurora's 4.0-liter V8. 10. 1989 Dodge Viper RT/10. We've saved our favorite 1980s concept for last. Thank goodness we did this list in chronological order. Dodge stunning Viper RT/10. The concept was intended as a modern-day Shelby 427 Cobra, powered by a crazy big 10-cylinder engine that was to be shared with future Ram pickups. The concept did indeed have a V10, though it was reportedly cobbled together from two V8s and unrelated to the production mill. Reaction to the Viper concept at the 1989 Detroit Auto Show was overwhelmingly positive, and Chrysler gave it the green light. When the production Viper appeared for the 1992 model year, it looked almost exactly like the concept car.